All right, I'm gonna first introduce, and also I just want to say this summit was put together by three amazing women, um, Nina, Lauren, for Rachana and Jyoti that are here today. Um, and they worked really hard to put that together for all of us. So I want to introduce them, and they're going to say a few words as well. And then Rachana, I think you are here. If that's you, just raise your hand. But yeah, please take it over. All right, Nina, Jyoti, do you want to say anything?
Oh, sure. Sorry, didn't realize. Hi, I'm Nena. I'm building in ed tech, and I'm super happy to be here. And the reason I'm helping with this bootcamp because it's super useful to me too. I'm also planning to raise, and all of the Founders Bay workshops were amazing. I learned a ton and got a lot of connections out of it.
Jyoti, do you want to say hi?
I think she can't unmute.
Oh, no, I made you co-host. So you should unmute. Lauren, do you want to say hi?
Hi, I'm Lauren. It's been a real pleasure to help with this. I'm building a video game studio right now. So I'm very excited about that project, and I've been really excited about this community and all the connections that have come out of that. So thank you so much for this.
Yeah, I can go next. I'm Jyoti. I work in the healthcare space. I have a startup in the digital products healthcare space, and I'm really happy to be part of the Women's Founders Bay. I find Marianne's energy very, very infectious. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. All right, Rachana, if you're here you go. I found you. Okay.
Hi,
And
everyone.
yes.
Hey, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for joining the call. I'm currently building in climate tech, and I've been very closely associated with the Women Founders Bay. I feel the community has given a lot of just the network that it unlocks for us. It's really beneficial, and Marianne always helps us learn more and has built a really collaborative group. And yeah, just happy to be here and hope that even you drive a lot of value out of this session. Thank you.
Awesome. I did pay them to say kind words, by the way. All right, and then last but not least, Natalie. Natalie runs a really cool like pre-funding accelerator, and then she helped organize or put together the entire like a lot of the afternoon sessions. So Natalie, do you want to say a few words and talk about your program?
Yeah, excited to be here. I'll just do a quick little presentation. Yeah. Oh, one person share time. Okay. So yeah, Funding Breakthrough Lab is an equity pre-accelerator. I myself was doing startups last year, and you know, growing up, my parents always wanted safety for me. And so me doing startups was something that they totally were against. So I never had the support or mentorship that I want growing up, going into entrepreneurship. And so Funding Breakthrough Lab is bringing together over 30 speakers and mentors that are in the industry to help you guys also break through in learning about fundraising. And the Pre-Accelerator is a nonprofit. And the main takeaways are that you also get to have live Q&A. It's a 12-week program, and you gain access to network, being able to hear from different speakers. And we pretty much differentiate ourselves because we also only focus on fundraising aspects. What I noticed was that a lot of the accelerators, they all do the building part, you know, user research, go to market, but there's fundraising is a whole skill set on its own, and that's what we focus on. With any accelerator, as you know, it's very easy to break promises to yourself, even to someone else. But when you have a group, especially if it's people you respect, you hold yourself more accountable, so you can get a lot more done when you go through a program with a schedule and learning. We have pitch competitions every 4 weeks, And we have access to a bunch of great talent. Daniel Theobald is, he's really well known in the robotic space. He actually started one of the first robotic automated forklifts, and he also started Mass Robotics, which is a nonprofit accelerator out in Boston that's really big. Daryl Etherton was the managing editor at TechCrunch. He's actually mentoring for pitches every other week. Sean Flynn used to manage Bay Angels, which is one of the oldest and most active angel groups in the Bay Area. Naomi O'Donnell's at Unusual Ventures. We have a lot of other great speakers, from lawyers to business bankers, to really give you the understanding of where you can get fundraising, as well as other speakers to help you with outreach and investor relations. And just to say, because of this boot camp, I decided that we are at the end. Tomorrow's our application deadline. So we are doing a special. It's $497. That's the cheapest that we've gone. So we are looking for the last few applicants to join our cohort. So feel free to apply. It's at fundingbreakthroughlab.org.
Yeah, so let's welcome our first speaker, an amazing Dasha Kroshkina. She's a serial founder. She raised 4.5 million as a solo female immigrant founder, and on top of it, a first-time founder. She's also a Techstar, New York City and Berkeley Skydeck alumni. And on top of that, she won 5 international startup competitions, including Seed Stars Global Winner, $500,000 in prize. Wow, I need to up my goals now after reading this. She's also Forbes 30 under 30. And if that's not enough, she's also a growth and fundraising mentor, sharing and volunteering her time, and she helped more than 40 founders raise pre-seed round. So let's welcome Dasha.
Hi everyone. Oh my God, I should cut down this intro. It's kind of like intimidating to talk after, like, I feel like intimidating myself, to be honest. I'm super excited to be here today. Fundraising is like one of my favorite topics because as a founder, I had so much pain raising my first money, maybe second, third, slightly less painful, fourth round was actually quite enjoyable. And as a founder, I like to build products always. Like when I had a pain and I found a way how to solve it, I like to help people to create, like much more simplified and less painful process. How many founders here are raising right now? Like if you can just, I would like to make your session, like a bit more interactive, like maybe, like sign or like in the comments. Great. Awesome. So I actually prepared a few slides and just to make it structure, and then I'm gonna, like leave some time for discussion. Overall, I would say when I first started, like as a first-time founder, I remember like my first pre-seed round, it took me like 9 months and it was miserable. I could not just understand, like how people without any traction, just an idea, raise like 5 million, like on like note and napkin, pretty much. And then, like I have a product, I have early traction, and I still cannot raise money. It just like felt so, like frustrating. I don't know, like talking to investors, really not understanding how the game is working. If you guys kind of like have already your first conversations, maybe you can relate to this. It's kind of like you don't really understand the rules of the game. For me, the game changer was when I got into Techstars New York. And by the way, I got to Techstars and Berkeley Skydeck after 32 rejections. We've been rejected 32 times by YC and Techstars in different locations until we got to yes. And that pretty much, like really helped me to really understand how the full fundraising works for me, help my, like my friends. And then for the past year and a half, I've been like also helping founders, like raise their pre-seed and seed and like angel rounds. So I'm just trying to, like show all my experience and learnings. It's gonna be a pretty shitty design because as a founder, I'm not a product founder. I'm the one who's like building lunch. So it's gonna be as minimalistic as possible, but hopefully it's gonna be useful. So yeah, enough about me. What I wanted to show today and like my learnings is that fundraising is just a funnel and a bit of psychology, investor psychology. And maybe your own, because rejection sucks and it's painful no matter what people tell you. What I wanted to cover today is well known from my perspective as a founder, how investors think, how to create an investor pipeline and have 5-7 conversations per week, ideally, and how to leverage your network to close your round much faster. I don't know who can relate how fundraising feels most of the time. Extremely frustrating and even depressing. You're always too early. Investors ask for profit while competitors raise, like pre-product. They keep asking millions additional questions nonstop without giving commitment. And as a founder, you have to juggle. I mean, you have to build the product, you have to build revenue, you have to keep traction, and you have to fundraise. And like you kind of like cannot really do this all. If that really sounds familiar to you, I don't know, like any reactions, any comments, yeah, anything that would be useful. I think like what helped me at the first, and I feel like like lots of people are going to be talking today, but really kind of like understanding how VCs think. Like I guess like many people have heard about like golden rule. 99 companies will fail, and one company will have to make at least like 100x return. And that's usually done like when it comes to like IPO, like an exit and everything. Like that comes from this. What it means to you specifically is that whenever you're pitching at the early stage, you should focus on and your pitch and storytelling huge markets that can potentially bring 100x return, extremely big and bold mission, and high growth, and keep raising capital. Because like if you're gonna be saying like, hey, we're just gonna raise like first 100K and we're gonna be profitable, VCs, I'm not talking about angels, but VCs will not make the return this way. So like whenever you're pitching, should be like really big vision, like huge and bold mission, like multi-billion-dollar market ideally, and you have to show that you can go really fast and they can make this return. And that's, I guess, like it's pretty different from my experience when like raising VCs comparing to angels, because for like angels, like if they invested like 100K and got back like 150K, it's still a good investment. For like VCs for their model to work, it should be like at least like 100K, 100x return. What it feels like for me, like the key skills for fundraising for me was like storytelling, and you guys gonna have like different sessions about this, but for me like storytelling, the core thing is really making sure everyone understands the problem you're solving, like as easy like in one sentence, even like a 5-year-old, what problem you're solving, like how big is the market for the problem and why you're the best to build this. Not about solution, because we as a founders, we love solution and the product so much. We build it, we live every day with this, we want to talk about this, we want to talk about features, but like at the end of the day, it's really much more about like the problem and the market. Creating momentum and running consistent process, so that's something I'm going to be really talking like much more further. I feel like that's like the core. That's what I learned and what actually made the difference, how to structure the whole process so like you can raise faster and kind of like like hack this investor psychology process. For me, game changer was when I started to structure my fundraising into 2 different stages. First, passive fundraising, and the actual active fundraising. Because I feel like momentum is created when you have a lot of calls, like from investors who like ideally already warmed up in a very, like short, concise period of time. So like in this way, like they don't really have lots of opportunities to, like ask additional questions, they have a deadline to make a decision. They have a feeling that everyone wants to invest in you, and you can recreate this feeling, like in this like process yourself if you like manage the process. Usually the most difficult part is like how you can have, like 30, 40, 50 conversations within like 2 weeks. You either have a very ready network and it's like really warm, but like as a first-time founder or like early stage founder, not necessarily like that's the case. It's like rarely. So like that's where it comes, like a passive fundraising stage. Ideally, what I usually do, what I also recommend to do, and what was like changing things for me, is that approximately 3 months before actually announcing the round, I started to connect with investors. And whenever in the first conversation, I would say, we are not raising right now. We're just building relationships. We're not raising. We just want to talk. I would add everyone to the update list. I would try to send them at least 3 updates. If your process moves fast, you can do bi-weekly. If not, it could be monthly, because you need to kind of like warm up and show consistency. Everyone's going to look for consistency. Start to build this like early before you announce. And when you have approximately like 30, maybe 20 people, we talk about angels, funds less, who said that they are potentially interested to invest at your stage whenever you open the round, that's where you can actually announce it. Like, hey, you know, like next week, we're actually announcing this. And then there's like, you know, like 20, 30, 40 people who, you know, like you warmed up, who, you know, like really concise, who like really already know what you're building. Then you can say, okay, like on Monday, I'll open my rounds for the next like 1-2 weeks. My calendar's free, book a call, and you're gonna be, you know, like having, you know, like lots of conversation already about the rounds. And like this structuring kind of like really makes a huge difference, because whenever they're like really packed and already you have like kind of like build connections and relationships, you can kind of like build the process where investors are urged to make decisions faster. And then like, especially like if you can get a soft commitment from like pretty much every conversation. Soft commitment doesn't mean like term sheet or anything. It's just like saying, hey, you know, like I'm interested to invest 50K. I'm interested to invest like 100K potentially. You can take this like soft commitment and start sending them updates, you know, like every like 3 days, 4 days. And you can show that, you know, like, hey, the market wants to invest in you. There are like signs in the market that like so many people actually want to put money in. And that's usually changes lots of things. And from my experience, like this is like warm pipeline first calls. That's the most important part of to create momentum. Like you have your deck, you have a data room prepared in advance. And then you have this like, I don't know, like 12 weeks, really depends on your network, when you get in the warm introductions, when you're having first conversations, when you're building relationships. And that's like the most important. If you've done enough, if you have enough investors in the stage, then when you kind of like open the round and announce, and you ideally have 3-5 conversations per day, then you can close the round within like 2-3 weeks. Like in my case, I closed, you know, like once 1.5 million, like 8 days, pretty much, you know, like running a similar process. It's kind of like a bit different right now, but I would say like the timing is pretty realistic even in the current market. Okay, I can see some questions in the chat. Okay, at the end. Okay, awesome. Yes, a bit about numbers. I would say if you have like initial conversations, maybe it was like 50, I would say maybe 50, 100. It depends like how like realistic they are. Some people are gonna say you're too early. Some people say I'm not investing right now, which is a huge case. Some people are gonna tell not my market, or like, you know, like I'm gonna connect on like seed series A. And then ideally you're gonna have like 30, 40 people. I would say 30 is like realistic. Like if you have like 30 people who said they have money, they invest in the stage, they're potentially interested, then like out of 30, you can close like 5, 6, 7 checks, and you're gonna have your round this way. How you create momentum? Ideally, you have many commitments in a very short period of time. So ideally, your goal when you announce your round and you have like the first conversation is to finish every single conversation with a soft commitment. When a person is going to say, okay, I'm interested to, you know, like potentially subject to further due diligence and so on, invest like 100K, 50K, 200K. Use this like soft commitment and start circulating those updates as frequently as you can. Ideally, if you want to raise $1 million, you're going to oversubscribe in soft commitments like by 2 million, because some people are going to drop. I mean, that's just like natural. But in this case, you know, like everyone starts to feel that like, oh my God, you know, like this commitment, that commitment, you know, like one more commitment. There's something, you know, like people are feeling this way. And sometimes, you know, like people who like join at the end, you know, like conversations and been receiving those updates, they just, you know, like close like right after the first call. I personally usually start these conversations with like people I most likely will not take money from. Maybe like not as smart money, or like, you know, like, but I just know that they're gonna be, you know, like agreeing much faster. And I'm talking to like people who like I really want to get money from, who like it's really hard to get money from. By the time I already have some kind of like round committed, but I still have space for them. So like it's really hard to get the first yes. No one wants to be the first. You know, like everyone is waiting for the signal. Okay. How do you find it? Okay, I can see. Nana, should I like just like answer questions like all in the end, or like stop? How do you want it?
I think
Because I
you
feel
can just go on and we'll collect all the questions and
okay.
you can answer them after. I can
Okay.
read up to you.
Awesome. Yes. So lead investor or not. Whenever they ask if you're raising pre-seed, I would really, as a founder personally, maybe investors have like different opinion. I would just like strongly encourage to announce the round that doesn't require lead investor, because finding a lead investor at the pre-seed sucks. I mean, like there's like literally like 20, 25 funds who can actually lead at the pre-seed level. So usually if you're going to be raising like more than 700K, they're going to be asking for like lead investor, someone who's going to do the due diligence. So I would have to focus on the lead investor first. Everyone else is going to follow. However, it's a very challenging, I would say, especially in the current market. What I do advise sometimes is to say that you're raising like pre-seeds, I don't know, like 500, 600K, and then oversubscribe. You can end up raising, like 800K, like or more, like on a safe, but it's much easier for you to raise a party round, because if it's going to be 500-600K, no one really expects you to have a lead round here, and you can close, like a lot by like angels and just like mini funds like accelerators. And that's usually the hack that I'm trying to use. You can still, like cumulatively raise the same amount. You're just gonna avoid this like lead investor game. There's a list, there's like a list that was like published by Harlem Capital, list of I guess 26 or like 27 pre-seed funds who like actually lead pre-seed today. It was like based on like Q4 data. I can share like later, with like organizers, and we can circulate the list of the investors. Because the problem is many funds gonna tell you that we lead, but then you open the Crunchbase and you can see their last deal was like a year ago, or like like they don't really have a dry powder. So you really need to understand who's like actually investing right now. And there's like really 25, 30 funds at the pre-seed stage. Seed is much better. Seed is like pretty much where you get the lead. Okay, where to get those interests from? If you are well connected, especially to the founders, I mean, that huge bonus for like everyone in the community is like extremely helpful, supportive space, like, and founders can help each other. And if you're like really well connected, warm interest from other founders, number one. I actually found like a hack is like startup ecosystems, like being very helpful. Like especially like based, like in the Bay Area, Stripe, Brex, HubSpot, like Mercury, they run tons of events. They also sometimes invite, like different investors. And I just started to build relationship with people who run startup communities for these companies. And they're actually pretty well connected, like, and they're not approached for like introductions that often. I felt this like it's kind of like a shortcut sometimes to get connected. And executives in the space where you're solving the problem, that could be, like potential angels. Like it depends on the industry. If you're not well connected, cold outreach. I do this sometimes, and I feel like if you don't have much of a network, it does make sense to run a parallel process when you get in the warm introductions, but at the same time, you're trying to outreach in a cold way. But cold doesn't mean massive, like sending, like thousands of emails, like spray and pray, doesn't really work, I would say. Like, at least like my personal opinion. You can really try to narrow down to investors going to be the best fit for you. Ideally, like for example, especially like angels, ideally people who really understand the problem you're trying to solve. For example, my first company was education broad platform. So whenever I would pitch to like Bay Area native dude, like working in a fund, they would just, like, oh my God, the problem does not exist. Like there's no market. If I would tell what problem I'm solving to, for example, like Indian immigrants who came 15 years ago through the education, I don't have to solve the problem. They're going to be, oh my God, the problem was huge. The market is huge. I get it. I didn't have to say anything, And if you can find this like hack, what type of people gonna really understand the problem you're solving from their personal or professional experience, and then somehow find them, like on LinkedIn using like keywords, maybe building something for like moms, like maybe, and they also have like angel investor in their like title somewhere. That's pretty much the list of people who can run, like some cold outreach process. And it could be pretty good. But I would say it's not like massive, it's not thousand. Try to really segment people, you know, like maybe like couple of hundreds in this segment, couple of hundreds in that segment, or even sometimes doing, you know, like personalized, you know, like emails. If it's like really, really like big angel or like super connector, it does make difference. You know, like people see that you do your background work. You read some posts, you know, like you commented somewhere, you saw their like recent deal. So the more intentional and personalized it is, the higher the conversion for the cold outreach. Startup competitions, I did 5, helped hugely. I mean, I was like immigrant founder, came States 4.5 years ago. Whenever you don't have connections, like people who judge, you know, like judges, like mentors, those are the people you want to be connected. So like you want to have an opportunity to be, you know, like presented in front of those people. So I would say if you're first time founder, you know, like in early stage, this is like super helpful, you know, like that's where I got my advisors, my first angel who made a warm intro to Techstars. It's a huge, you know, like at the beginning, especially when you're pitching from the stage. And accelerators. Again, I did 2. It was tough, it was at the same time, but having access to the network, that's huge. That kind of like, you know, like really solves a lot of problem. But yeah, let's be honest, it's like less than 1% get in, maybe like 2%. So it's highly competitive. Oh my God, I can see questions coming. Okay, I'll show it. What I would say in my case, founders network is your biggest asset. Is your like if I would encourage you to do one thing after this, like I don't know, like this today's day, like today's bootcamp, I would just find you know, like maybe 15-20 founders, ideally founders who raised from your target funds, if you're raising from the funds, founders who raised overall, especially in the past year and specifically in your industry, and founders who are actively raising right now as well, open to collaborate. If you find those 15-20 people, you get them on a call, you get a relationship with them, and each founder, like for example, if like founders, you know, like the founders who raised recently, if each founder is gonna make 1 or 2 introductions, that's your whole pipeline. You know, like you can run calls simultaneously because, you know, like founders are busy. I feel like we all have massive ADHD. I sometimes need to be followed up at least 3 times. Unfortunately, I feel very bad about this, but like we just miss sometimes, you know, like messages. But yeah, 10 founders who like have connections, who like willing to help, each 2 introductions, that's a warm pipeline. And I would say like founders network is the biggest asset of all. And I kind of like covered this previously, but not every investor is right for you. Like if you're building deep tech, do not go to like someone who's doing HR or like generalist. You know, like if you're doing consumer, maybe B2B enterprise is gonna be not the best shot. First, you know, like because of like getting really understanding the market from scratch takes a lot of effort. You need to simplify, you know, like decision making for investors, either angels or funds. There's like funds, they have to report to LPs, and they also sometimes have, you know, like this segment, you know, like why they're investing in certain companies. So ideally just filter out as much as possible and focus your energy on people who understand the problem you're solving from personal or professional level, people who are familiar with your journey and experience. For example, in my case, again, like I usually try to talk to either fellow immigrants or women, because we just understand each other. We can appreciate the journey we've been through. It's just much easier to build the empathy and compassion just for like a person to really understand you know, like, and what you're doing. And people who are actively investing right now, that's a huge, like 2022, 2023, everyone was like investing. Right now, there's like lots of wandering people, you know, like who just, you know, like they're just curious, you know, like maybe sometimes do not be intimidated to actually ask, you know, like when was your last deal? How many deals do you do per year? You know, like how fast do you make decisions? You don't have the luxury of, you know, like wasting time, and you need to prioritize conversations with people who like actually investing right now. Yeah, it's like in dating, you know, like either people are really ready for like relationship or they're not. It's kind of like similar, I guess, like in the fundraising. Yeah, I think kind of like covered this. And yeah, maybe last but not the least, I like this phrase: ask for money and you'll get the advice, ask for advice and you'll get money. That's usually my personal way to approach many relationships. And even when you're going to be approaching investors, especially in advance, ask them for the product feedback, ask them for the strategy feedback, ask them for the launch feedback. People are much more willing to join in the call when they're going to be, like giving the advice and being engaged when you're building your story and your company, and then they're going to be excited to put in money inside. But that's usually my approach. Some people are very direct and sell directly. I just like to build relationship first, and then it usually converts into money.